There we go. Episode 59. Back
Oh,
at it.
here
Vic for
we
the
are.
intro.
Fantastic, guys. Welcome back to 40K Fireside. You can see our faces today. We've got
Boom.
WTC shirts on, which we traded last year. Well, we've got Sacco here.
Yeah.
So today we are gonna be trying to make WTC more relevant for the general meta, for the singles meta, because I think most of our listeners are going to be primarily singles players who dabble in teams when they can.
Mm.
And we're going to go through each of the main, most represented factions and discuss kind of our thoughts on how the faction as a whole sits within the singles meta in Pariah Nexus, and also what lessons we can learn from the WTC list design that you guys and ourselves, once we come out of WTC, can take into our singles tournaments. Dave,
Yeah.
how does that sound?
Yeah, no, it sounds good. I guess you could think of this as if we were going to play a big singles tournament tomorrow, this is what we would think about, I suppose, right? Now,
Yeah.
obviously, there's lots of different terrain formats. In general, I think what we're going to say probably won't apply to UKTC as much, actually. So probably because I think UKTC is further away from WTC than GW terrain is probably. So if you're playing on GW terrain at the moment, it's sort of similarish to to WTC. So maybe not as relevant for the UKTC, but obviously we still know it really well.
So I'm guessing you may not have seen the latest UKTC mission packs, Dave.
No, I have, which
You
is
have,
why
and
which is
that
why
makes
they're
you say
crazy.
it's different. I have a feeling, WTC is going to be not too far off how UKTC feels. There'll be like a little
Ah,
bit of a difference, but I think some of these medium boards with centerpieces of terrain are going to be very similar in WTC and UKTC.
okay, sweet, nice.
And
There
I
we go.
also think, we've got Glasshammer Super Majors starting now regularly in the UK. So
Hmm.
that terrain format also coincides quite nicely.
Ah,
GW
yeah.
is a little different, but again, I think there's so many lessons we can take from this that translate across to any of the main terrain formats now that they all use big line of sight blocking pieces.
Definitely. So let's kick it off with the main super faction. Now, this is 40 out of 40 teams, right?
Yep,
Everyone took it. Marines. Everyone has a Marine player in their team. So, like, it kind of makes sense, right? But
that's it.
Marines, we've seen a pretty varied amount of archetypes, but clearly two main front runners here, right?
Mhm.
You've got Blood Angels and Dark Angels. Now, I think Blood Angels have been known in the singles meta for quite some time.
Mhm.
But I would definitely say that the WTC list reveal has been the breakout moment for Dark Angels. And, we've got, I guess, Ironstorm, Black Templars. But I thought, well, you thought as well, let's jump into the Dark Angels list of the
Yeah.
tournament, potentially. There are a few ones, but we think that this one probably gives a good representation of where we're at.
Absolutely. The update to Dark Angels kind of came in during everyone's lockdown with WTC prep. So there hasn't been much discussion on it, even though we've seen it pop up in tournaments a little bit
Mm.
already.
Hmm.
But obviously, you've got John Lennon, who is probably, one of the best players in the world. And I have a
Certainly the best.
feeling.
Is he the
Mhm.
best Marine player?
You've got to give it to him. Whatever faction he plays, he's going to be one of the best in the world, if not the best.
Yep.
So he's, and also Dark Angels. I think the way that they play probably suits John Lennon's playstyle really well. They're
Yeah.
very balanced kind of playstyle where he adapts to different situations.
Hmm.
Very versatile player. You can't say he's obviously an aggressive or obviously a defensive player. He sits right in the middle and switches depending on the situation.
For sure. So, what makes Dark Angels good now? There is definitely a centerpiece unit, so to speak, right? And
Mhm.
I think if you're going to go play a singles tournament tomorrow, you need to be aware of the Deathwing Knights.
Mhm.
They are 4 wounds off the top of my head.
That's right.
Uh, 4 wound Terminator model. They have gotten a pretty serious buff in terms of the damage output. I
Yep.
think they got like +1 AP, and then they got another overlapping buff on top of that as well.
Mhm.
So they're kind of the centerpiece that you build your entire list around. You're paying roughly 690-ish points or 705 points for 15. So it's a
Mhm.
huge composition of your list. And then obviously you've got characters that join that as well. What makes Deathwing Knight so good? Because obviously John's playing at WTC. Uh, how come how come they're so much more popular? And I guess spoiler alert, you're playing in Gladius as well, so you've got those
Mhm.
reactive moves. You've got a
That's
little
it.
bit more and enablers, I guess, for these Deathwing Knight units, particularly for the mobility side of things, right?
Yep, I think the Deathwing Knights, both from an offensive and a defensive standpoint, they sit very well in the meta. We've had multiple moments where these kinds of tanky, mid-board, bricky kind of units have been very successful in 10th edition. We've had the Bulgrin, we've had the Canoptek Wraiths,
Hmm.
and we've got something kind of similar in these Deathwing Knights. And they come with a number of like extra things because of Gladius. The reactive move is absolutely huge. The ability to advance and charge, the kind of little extra rule they have with the Watcher in the Dark,
Hmm.
which coincides really nicely with the Mortal Wound and Dev Wound chain. So Dev
Yep.
Wounds now count as mortal wounds, and the Watcher in the Dark can give one of these Deathwing can give the Deathwing Knights once per game of 4 of Feel No Pain against Dev Wounds,
Super good.
which sits really nicely, especially considering a lot of the stronger armies in the meta, T-Suns, Sisters, like using Mortal Wounds as part of their output profile.
And of
Uh,
course, you get, it's sometimes be forgotten about because I forgot that this rule exists. But you get assault doctrines.
mhm,
Remember ninth edition, man. Every breed has assault doctrines, but I
mhm.
feel like you never see them anymore. But obviously, getting access to advance and charge, fallback and charge are huge centerpieces, and they have the strat for you can put one of your units into that doctrine as well, right?
Hmm.
So, your Deathwing Knights get tagged up, pile in, consolidate, put the ball, one CP, fall back and charge, boom, you're back in the game.
Yeah,
They're really hard to tie down, and considering they do good damage, whew,
yeah,
pretty spicy.
absolutely. I think John Lennon's made some like good optimizations to this list. He's got the assault intercessors in the list, which are probably one of the most pushed data sheets for their points cost
Mm,
in the entire game, and they're absolutely
crazy.
nuts in Blood Angels as well. But you're seeing them here in Dark Angels too.
Mhm.
But he's also, you can see just at the bottom of the screen, he's got a unit of Eradicators in there,
Yeah, it's an odd
which
choice, isn't it?
yeah, the Eradicators are a direct anti-tank answer that, in this case, goes alongside his Repulsor to
Hmm.
give him answers to a wider variety of armies. The Melter profile on the Eradicators is excellent into a wide range of targets, both
Yeah.
vehicles and monsters. So,
You've also got Inner Circle Companions, which have a great model, but are also a really push data
oh,
sheet,
they're
in my
so
opinion.
pushed.
Their
Yeah,
output is crazy good for what you
yeah.
get. 180 points, and they're 3 wound apiece. So coming in at just under 10 points, or 10 points per wound.
Mhm.
JPI sit at 8 points per wound, which is obviously quite mental as well.
Cheap.
Uh, he's also got the Calidus Assassin.
Hmm.
Now, I think almost every team has the Calidus Assassin. And if you look at a list like this, I would play this list at my next singles tournament personally,
Hmm.
because if you look at it, it's got everything. It's a take all comers list in its truest, most sense of the word, right? What does this list lose to? It's super unclear, that's for sure. It's unclear
Yeah,
to me. I don't see what it loses to. It could probably win every game, in a singles environment, I think, and play around the
absolutely.
board super well, right?
Yeah, and there's been a lot of discussion that I've seen online about how much value people can actually get from WTC lists for singles. And
Yep.
people are questioning, like, should we even bother looking at it? These lists are so skewed for teams that it doesn't matter in singles. But what you're looking at on the screen now is absolutely a potential singles list.
Yeah,
It has
for sure.
all the elements involved to get small wins and successful wins into a wide range of armies, which is exactly what you want in singles. And obviously, for teams, if you give a good pilot this list, they're going to push more than just small wins against a number of armies as well. So, this is a good list that you'll see in teams and singles. And that's going to be a trend I think you're going to see across a lot of the WTC lists that we do look at and discuss.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I know we had 20 Wraithguard come out as a huge singles list as well, of course, from the last WTC. Those GSC lists, which, well, were sort of already known, I guess, as well. Guard came out of there, arguably, a little bit as well. So, yeah, fantastic list. Marines is the Blood Angels. But on the flip side, did you have anyone in particular you wanted to look for Blood Angels?
Well, not really. I actually wanted to ask you more widely about
Mm,
Marines because we're seeing kind of four very successful archetypes here that in WTC. We've got a Black Templar list, which everyone's raving about, Olivier from
mm,
France. And then we've got Space Wolves. We've seen that with Team Poland. They're bringing Space Wolves. Is that
mm.
Kruka?
Yeah, Kruger's playing it, yep.
Yeah, and then we've got Manny Chima in Team England playing the Blood Angels,
Hmm.
and then we've got John Lennon playing the Dark Angels. So we've got all of them represented across potentially what people are putting as maybe the four favorite kind of teams to win WTC.
Yep.
And what do you think, Dave, between those archetypes for singles, not for teams, not for this
Mm.
particular event, for singles, what do you think comes out the strongest out of those four?
It's a tough one.
Mm,
I think if not many people had played against it, I would take the Kruger list with the Thunderwolf Cavalry. I think
mhm,
that's got the best potential to have a run where if your opponent in your last critical round hasn't played a game against it, it will just beat people.
mhm,
There's a lot of tricks in that list. I think if in 2 months' time, the best list would still be the Dark Angels list. I think
mhm,
that's got so much play potential to it. It's not exactly, it's just not fixed into doing one thing. It just doesn't have a very clear weakness to me. It's got a lot of mission play as well. John even had the infiltrators in there. Maybe you don't need those, but with GK around, hey, it's got that too. So I think I would play a list that's. I like to have lists that don't have a clear weakness,
mhm,
because if your opponent knows that, they can obviously try and exploit that, and it puts you in a bit of an uncomfortable position. But yeah, I don't see where you would attack that type of Dark Angels list. For myself, Blood Angels, you kind of know they're a bit more omnidirectional, but with the Eradicators and the Repulsor, you've got a bit of more shooting play there as well. You could even flex those parts out for whatever terrain. That seems like a pretty obvious place to flex things. Maybe cutting down the eradicators, maybe getting rid of a vehicle, adding, whatever, if you do want long range shooting back into that, or putting more melee potential, maybe a 5 first or whatever like that. So I think Dark Angels list seems really good. I'd be happy with submitting it for LGT tomorrow. And yeah, what about yourself?
It's an interesting one because all four of them are primarily melee armies, I would say,
Mm, yep.
but it's only the Dark Angels that introduce a shooting element out of
Mm,
all four of the lists, and out of the three purely melee options, the Space Wolves, the Black Templars, and the Blood Angels. Blood Angels is the flying one.
mm,
Space Wolves is the really fast one, and Black Templars is the hoardy one. So there's
mm,
something for all different flavors. I think as an opponent, I love playing against melee pressure because that it really my playstyle really suits playing against melee pressure. And the things that I find hardest to deal with are advancing and charging stuff that is very fast, so the Space Wolves,
mm,
and things that fly. That's the Blood Angels.
yeah.
I am just glad that nothing exists that flies and advances and charges and is fast. So there's a weakness that is involved in all of them that can be exploited to manage it. The
Mm,
Dark Angels add an extra twist in that because they have relevant shooting against some of your big targets, which
mm,
some of these armies, might struggle a little bit with. Personally, I'd say that the Blood Angels is the most scary one to play if you have mid-board terrain.
yep.
The Space Wolves is the scariest one to play if they go first.
Hmm.
The Black Templars is the scariest one to play if you roll really badly on the key turn. And the Dark Angels is the scariest one to play if you're playing against a really, really strong opponent.
Yeah.
Technically strong opponent.
Yeah, yeah. I wonder what wins Blood Angels versus Dark Angels, right? Because I know that's going to happen at the WTC. What like
Yeah.
people are obviously playing these matchups, right? I'm not playing them because I don't have to, but you know, if you're a Blood Angels player, are you playing the mirror matchup? Are you playing against Dark Angels? Like, how
Yeah.
does that go? I mean, Deathwing Knights with the interrupt are pretty tanky as well, and they got a good profile of killing Marines. So I
Definitely.
feel like if I was a Deathwing Knight player with AOC, I would just be chilling there. And hey, cool, you can hit me, but are you gonna kill me? You know?
Exactly. It's going to be really close, isn't it, on the maths,
Yeah,
gosh.
exactly. Yeah.
Hmm.
So Marines are looking really strong. You could,
Absolutely.
I mean, they're 40 out of 40, but I guess there's a player base thing in there as well.
Yeah, and looking at singles results recently, the Blood Angels are coming out really strong.
Yep.
But I have a feeling as people start to experiment with the Dark Angels, I'll be very interested to see how their results kind of go here. I
Mm,
personally think the Blood Angels is a lot easier to play than the Dark
yeah.
Angels correctly. And
Yep.
that's probably going to have an influence on overall win rate percentages in singles.
For sure, and just representation as well.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
for sure.
Well,
Nice.
no, Dark Angels have always been popular. They always become popular when they're good. So
Ah,
we'll have to see.
well, maybe they should make Deathwing Knight unit of 10, and then
Oh my god, please, no. Not again.
Yeah, please do not do that. That sounds
Not
bad.
again.
I'm pretty sure they'd be playing 30 of the Deathwing Knights if you could run 30. um, Fun times. All right, next up is a faction that Rick and I are both playing.
Yep.
Thousand Suns. Now, there's obviously been a couple of archetype that have
Yep.
emerged out of this, right? We've got the kind of your style, which is a bit more traditional, or Alex
Mhm.
Sacco, who's playing Zero Mutolith Beasts. Uh,
Sako's on one. It's
uh,
Arna who's still on zero.
Apologies, Anna, who's on zero, who's by the way, is if you don't know, a very long time T Suns player.
Hmm.
And you've got more people like myself playing three, and then you've got the rightest end of that spectrum, Brian playing 3+2 Forge Fiends.
Yeah.
And they're pretty different armies when you get from one end to the other there, right?
Hmm.
From 0 Mutalith Beast to 5 big pieces, which is more of like a, it is more, I think, and you put this really well, Vic, a Chaos Knight type of army, right?
Magical
Magnus is your
Chaos
big knight,
Knights.
and then you've got lots of other stuff under there as well. So yeah, what's your take? What if I guess it's really hard to tell, but where do we land in terms of singles? What would you would be most comfortable
Mm.
with knocking down? Given obviously, I think it's fair to say I think Marines are going to be the most popular faction going into a singles
Mhm.
tournament. I probably 30%, I would say. And as the rounds go on, I'd be surprised if that wasn't even higher.
Yeah, yeah, it's an interesting one. Personally, I think for singles, all of these flavors are going to work very well.
Okay.
I think as a faction, T-Suns is really strong and it sits correctly in the meta.
Hmm.
Now, if we're looking at trying to win a big tournament, we've got to look at weaknesses.
Mm-hmm.
And the traditional T-Suns list actually comes in with very few weaknesses
Mm-hmm.
as an army. When it's played as perfectly as it can be played, it's very hard to deal with for most armies. Unless you specifically have psychic defense,
Mm.
it's really tough. And there are very few armies in the meta with psychic defense. Unfortunately, we
Mm-hmm.
mentioned one. We've got the Deathwing Knights, who
Yes,
do have very clear, obvious psychic defense. It's also a very, very slow army. That matchup is not clear cut, to be honest.
for sure.
So in singles, if you are a very good player and you're playing against slightly less experienced Dark Angels player, there's a chance you might pull out a win even on a matchup which is uphill for you.
Yep.
But then apart from that, it's only the Grey Knights that are really tough for normal T Suns.
Ah, interesting. Well, the
Yeah,
Mutalith Beast version is quite good against the Grey Knights as well, I would say.
correct, exactly.
So it's an interesting one. I honestly I've got no idea. I think a lot of it does depend on the terrain though, because the Mutalith Beasts clearly are
Mm,
worse on, hard L shapes, perfect
yeah,
at perfect angles, like UKTC and the new maps do have. So it's, maybe you go to a more rhino oriented kind of build instead of the ones that we're playing, obviously, which I don't think many people are playing rhinos. I think Arna is playing a rhino, but most people that are playing one Mutalith Beast are not playing the rhino as well, which
yeah.
is an interesting development. So,
I think Saka's got a rhino in there.
okay, yep.
So there is a little bit of mix and match, adding in tech pieces to suit you.
Mm,
Unfortunately, list design is a little boring, except for the guys who are going for the triple mutilate vortex piece, like I
mm,
think 4 or 5 of you.
yep.
The rest of them are pretty much exactly the same kind of list.
Mm,
What I would say about the triple mutilate vortex beast is anytime you go for lots of monsters, lots of big things, or spam or skew, it's very powerful in teams. And I think sometimes that's what puts people off about comparing teams and singles.
yeah.
And it's very powerful because there are some people who just cannot deal with if you have lots of big things or lots of little things.
Hmm.
And you end up being able to win much bigger. In singles, there's a pro and a con. The pro of having more big things is your strategy for winning a game is going to be much more obvious than when you have a really complex, fiddly, fragile army.
Mm,
But you also will have a chance of, what if you go second against someone that can kill you on a bad board? So you've got to
mm.
consider a lot of other factors as well with that.
It's
But
really tough. There's no
yeah,
there's no clear winner in that one. I don't think.
mhm.
I would be happy to play the three beasts in a singles environment. I still don't think it's got very many bad matchups, but
No,
Dark Angels is definitely one that's a little bit more tougher. That's for sure.
yeah,
I think it would also depend on the amount of shooting lanes on the board as well, because I think the beasts are a little bit better on a medium table where they can get shooting angles with surges and stand onto terrain. So for UKTC, for example, you don't have the ability to stand onto ruins and then shoot out of them like you do in GW and WTC, which is a big part of the more Mutalith gameplay, I would say. The ability just to stand on a terrain wholly and then shoot out of it. They have the huge arm.
do they not fit on the UKTC
They have this
terrains like
enormous
fully?
arm. Uh,
That's it. Do they
um,
like the base doesn't go wholly on? Is that?
I wouldn't believe so. No, they're very
Mhm.
light. I think they're a small night base, more or less.
Mhm.
Oh, but in terms of an oval,
Yeah,
so that's what I would be worried about. And those medium L's that we've got, you're going to need to, I don't know, go around them or something. You can't
got
exactly
it.
stand onto that and shoot out. But I don't even think they're tall enough to see through the top. Well, they might be tall enough. No, but then you'd have to touch it, be wholly within it. So, yeah, it's definitely a terrain format. orientated question, I think, as well.
There is one list that's probably worth getting up on the screen, which is Pumba's list, which sits right in
Yep.
the middle of everyone at the
Ah,
tournament.
yes, the
It,
incorrect two decision list,
I
which is
mean,
good.
I actually kind of like his list now in
Hmm.
retrospect, like looking through it, because I think it incorporates a lot of the key elements of T-Sun's list design.
Hmm.
I've seen a lot of people online kind of talk about, oh, you don't need the Exalted Sorcerer on disc anymore
Oh,
because he's not needed anymore. So let's go down to one. Oh, actually, no, I want to go down to zero. In my
hmm,
opinion, it's a critical unit in
strange. Yeah.
T-Suns. It's absolutely critical because not only is the output actually really good
Hmm.
on him, he's got a very good psychic attack. He's fast. He's infantry, and he gives you 2 Cabal points. He
Hmm.
gives you a slow, which is your control piece, and because of the speed, he also activates indirect fire. If I could take
He's surprisingly hard to kill as well.
yeah, and also good in combat. He's
Yeah.
basically all round one of the best units in the T Suns book. And me personally, I start my list with 3 of them now,
Hmm. Yep.
like every single time, alongside the Infernal Masters, of which I think almost everyone has got 3 Infernal Masters, except for the people going for like the 5 big things.
Mm, yeah.
Um, so the Infernal Masters is the biggest output with the Rubric Marines that you have in T Suns and one of the highest output units in the game.
Yep.
Um,
Nothing feels better than rolling like good old 10 shots, getting 4 6s, and then
yeah,
flipping one and be like, yeah, okay, you take 10 models.
Yeah, because of the flip and the rerolls is very consistent damage as
Very
well,
consistent. Yeah.
regardless of number of shots. So great unit. In this case, Pumbaa's gone for kind of 3 chaff units. I
Mm.
really like the double cultist and single Zangor because the Zangor sit on the backfield and the 2 units of cultists nicely approach 2 flanks.
Hmm.
But he's also got 2 Mutilate Vortex Beasts in there, which can play across 2 sides or maybe one in Strat Reserve. So
Yep.
I think this list, 4 rubrics, 2 mutilates, 3
Hmm.
chaff pieces, is beautiful list. Really well designed. So I think
Yep.
he's managed to get everything in there.
Yeah, I think the sorcerer. I think in WTC, I'm not a fan of the sorcerer, but for
Mhm.
singles, I think it's a lot more stronger depending on your terrain format for sure. I
Yeah.
think that's a good terrain format call whether or not you play the lone op sorcerer
Yeah.
because obviously you could swap it out for like a disc sorcerer for example,
Yeah.
depending on what your rubric matchup kind of balance looks like there as well.
When I look at my list compared to his, so I basically lost an Exalted Sorcerer. He's taken an Exalted Sorcerer disc out of my list,
Hmm.
downgraded my Araman to a Thousand Sun Sorcerer, and that lets him get the 3rd Mutilate Vortex Beast in.
Right.
That's basically the change. And when you look at it like that, it's actually not a bad change. That's pretty good.
Yep.
Pretty good value.
Yep. Would you still play Araman if you were to going to submit to Moravik?
Yeah, well, I love playing at 23 Cabal points, and that's just a completely different break point to playing at 19
Yep.
because it gives you a bit of redundancy.
Hmm.
In the mid game, I'm still hitting the full combo, and I love using all the command points. So everyone has a different way, and the thing is, I rarely play double Doombolt, whereas the 19
Ah.
Cabal point lists are playing off double Doombolt a lot because that's the
Yep.
break point for double Doombolt and Surge,
Hmm.
whereas I prefer double Surge and then
Oh.
single Doombolt, and
Oh.
then
Okay.
there's still 6 Cabal points to use a free stratagem.
For a reroll.
Yeah,
No, nice, yeah. I
not for
just
the reroll
free
for
strat,
the
yeah.
free strat. Yeah,
Yep. Well, the reroll. If you want to
yeah,
reroll with
yeah,
Magnus, it's 6
yeah, or the extend range or whatever,
Yeah.
something.
So T Suns, are we liking them? I'm kind of unconvinced how they're going to do in singles. If I'm being honest, it's not where I would start. Unironically, if I was going to play LGT tomorrow, not where I would start. I think.
Very interesting. Yeah, I mean, personally, I would consider them for singles,
Yep.
and I think they have a very high chance of going undefeated across 5 rounds.
Hmm.
Winning the entire tournament of say LGT, little tough, little tough. You might hit a counter here and there. You might make a mistake here and there. Is
Yep.
probably the biggest thing. But if you've got it honed down, I think T Suns give you a good chance for winning singles tournaments at the moment.
Definitely fair. Definitely fair. All right, what faction do we have up next? I think we've got Sisters.
Sisters, next most popular one, isn't it?
Nick, yes. Nanavati
Yeah,
is the one we're going to be looking at here.
Nick's Bringers. I mean, it's about 99% Bringers of Flame. Germany's gone
Yes.
for a Penitent Host.
Cruciate, yep.
But Bringers of Flame is coming out really solid in the WTC meta.
Yeah.
And
I'm surprised
I
there was no
surprised.
faith build with the one where you could do the auras within 3 maybe, but I guess in a team
Mm,
environment also as well. I mean, it's clearly the strongest build, but also in the team environment, you having a direct gameplay is very powerful as well.
yeah, I mean, my initial takes of the Codex when it first came out. I thought Bringers of Flame was obviously the strongest.
Hmm.
Everyone was really excited about Penitent Host for some reason, but
Mm.
it's like, guys, Sisters, the exact thing they need is increased output and damage and speed,
And assault.
and
Yeah.
you get so much of it in Bringers of Flame, just the extra
Mm.
speed. I personally think they messed up the Miracle Dice mechanic just slightly, because actually it maybe needed a tone down rather than a tone up. The amount
Yeah.
of sixes you get now is a little out of hand.
Especially because your chassis also have a 6-up in bun, which is
Uh,
big.
yeah, well, sixes have always been powerful for sisters,
Mm.
and you normally had to wait maybe 2 turns before you got a single six.
Yep.
Now you almost get 2 sixes every battle round if you take, the Mantle of Saint Griselda, which no one seems to have. I don't know why, but you basically can get 2 sixes every battle round in Bringers of Flame, which is obscene. It's extremely powerful.
Yeah, it's pretty good, man. And then obviously being able to Overwatch with on top of those as well. But basically, being able to six through your hunter killer missile damage initially is really big as well.
Yeah.
Just being able to, well, I've got 4 hunter killers or multi melters. Okay, variable damage, push through six, and when you've got fours and fives, those are still insanely good too. Um,
There's actually one thing which makes this detachment so powerful with the sixes, is because now you have an extra step you can influence with the miracle dice, which is the advance roll.
yeah,
Having auto six advance off your automatic dice is crazy powerful, and still being able to activate in a way.
yeah. And then obviously on top of that, they got some pretty substantial unit buffs as well.
Yeah, output
Now,
buffs.
let's go through Nick's list. I mean, from my opinion, most of them are pretty standard, right? You're seeing the typical 3 emulators, 3 castigators, and then whatever distribution of Seraphim you've got. Dominions, of course, as well. Nick's playing 5-5-10 here. He's got a Penitent engine, and then you've got your 20 Dominions, of course. They go in your 3 emulators, and
Or 20
Castigator.
or 30. I think he
Oh,
probably
sorry, he's
has.
got 30.
Is he
Oh,
gone for?
yeah,
Yeah, he's gone for the full 30. So,
yeah.
oh no, 20, 20.
I
What's
am
uh,
an
Am I just being silly? One, two, three.
Yeah,
Sorry.
sorry. It is hidden under there. You're right. 30.
Ah, yeah, it is. He's just got no space between the Castigator and
Yeah.
Dominion.
Although he doesn't have novitiates, which is the
Yeah,
change here.
I see people with different tech pieces on that third unit. So I
Yep.
feel like everyone is running triple emulator. Everyone's running double Dominions at least.
Yep.
And then maybe you might see Battle Sisters. Maybe you might see Novitiates on the third
Hmm.
choice.
Yeah.
Novitiates give you loads of options with forward deploy, allowing you to screen and play against armies like World Eaters. And I
Hmm.
think it's probably quite a strong pick for singles, to be
Yep.
honest. Um,
Yeah, I think sisters are in a great space for singles. Surely, right?
Surely,
The,
yeah.
I mean, the ability. I mean, for UKTC terrain as well, the Fire and Fade works really well around the hard L's. In
Mhm.
addition to that, the auto six advance, like you mentioned, is I'm assuming going to be 18 inches. You're going to be able to move from ruin to ruin, shoot and flame inside into a ruin, and then fire and fade back, or
It's
fire and fade into them,
so
then Overwatch. I mean, Seraphim are kind of like warp spiders in that sense, right?
yeah. So the Triumph has an aura of +2 move and +1 advance. So actually, that 18 is 21.
I
So
didn't even know that. Oh,
yeah.
yeah, there you go. The more you know. Yeah, the Triumph.
Sisters are phenomenally strong, and I think they probably need an adjustment to Miracle Dice. Certainly, the Triumph's Miracle Dice generation shouldn't be auto sixes every battle round. I think it's too strong.
Mhm.
And the army is going to come out very strong in singles, in my opinion. The archetypes we're seeing in WTC, the fact that everyone gravitated towards Bringers of Flame actually says a lot for the
Yeah,
power of this particular archetype.
and that's a really good point because whilst you know teams collaborate, uh, the result is a lot of individualistic thinking.
Mm,
And for, you know, 39 out of 40 teams or whatever, how many people playing this, to
yeah.
all come to more or less the same conclusion is
It's
quite telling.
nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially because I think Hallowed Martyrs is still really good
Yeah, it's
with being
perfectly
able
fine.
to regen your characters, being
Hmm.
able to kind of suffering and sacrifice in combat.
Yep.
These are very strong abilities for singles, so I wouldn't rule that out as an option. But pure damage, Brings the Flame is mental.
Does a lot. And the Castigator buff is pretty good, all in a long. Well, the ability side grade is quite good. Alongside the Immolator stacking is obviously very
Yeah.
powerful there. And
Mhm.
then the Castigator being stacking with the Seraphim ability is obviously really strong to make your Flamers higher AP. We've got one thing I liked was the 2-up, 5-up enhancement on the Canoness with the jump pack. Have you seen
Oh,
that one?
okay. No, I haven't
Yeah,
seen that one.
you
Is
can
that in
just
a different detachment or this one?
I think it's in Bringers of Flame. You can get the 2 up, 5 up, feel no pain.
Cool.
It's and you can run her just by herself because she still has the once per game thing. She rapid ingress for free, and it's just a little 25 millimeter model. Oh, some little thing there. I think some people were playing that, but I think Nick's list and Chris Kinnear's list quite similar. I think Chris Kinnear has gone more damage and more output to the extreme as well, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, really, Nick's tech piece here is Saint Celestine. That's something that's
Yes,
not showing up in a lot of lists. But oh gosh, anytime you can get Celestine in the list, I'm automatically a fan. So
yep.
I absolutely love that.
She's
I
kind of
think
like the Bulgarins of Garden in a certain sense, isn't it? You know,
yeah,
that
she's just
top
a
it.
pain.
Yeah,
But
you know.
but she can join Seraphim. So
Ah,
I don't think maybe she doesn't join Seraphim here because she's got the Canoness with the Fire and Fury thing, which gives you
mm,
+1 shot on your flame weapons.
yep,
So that's probably joining the big brick of Seraphim. Who
yep.
knows? I'm sure Nick's going to do well.
I'm sure he will. Nick's been playing Sisters for a long time. He's
Yeah.
been playing Sisters since we scrimmed them with Ignite, which was feels like a lifetime ago.
Yeah.
So we're all expecting Nick to do very well here as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Great list, Nick. Good job.
Good job. Do. Yeah, so I guess that covers Sisters. For singles, I mean, just pick up and go here, right? Submit
Yeah,
this list and be happy, right?
take any of these Bringers of Flames list to singles, and you'll be completely fine.
Yep.
I think look for these little tech pieces because that 160 points he's used on Celestine is an option for you to go from loads of different things. Just
Mm.
experiment with it.
Yeah, play. I mean, and that's the cool thing about Sisters. They have such a clear and obvious core package that
Mhm.
you can just flex that last 200 to 300 points for whatever
Yeah,
whatever your terrain set is like, right?
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's called the Iron Surplus of Saint Estelila. 5 point upgrade. You can put it on a cannon. this,
It's 5 points.
this is a 5 point enhancement. You can put on a Canonist model or a Palatine model. It gives you a 2 up and a 5 up field obey.
Well, there you go.
What? How is that a 5 point
I,
enhancement?
I think
That's
the
so
Canoness
good.
only has like 3 wounds though, so you got to be careful.
Yeah, but you can put on a Canonist with a jump pack. She's still got 3 but a 2 up 5, 5 feel no pain. And then
I
she
hear
can go
you.
crazy once per game. Oh, man.
Oh, dude, you should play some sisters.
Yeah, man. So
Get
I
them
think
on.
Michael in my team was saying that one. So that's credit to Michael. All right, on to the next big one. And this is a super popular faction.
Really popular, yeah.
Really popular. And for good reason, because there's lots of different ways of building it. And that's obviously why we see it a lot across in teams. We're talking, of course, about Grey Knights.
Yes, I went for one which was middle of the ground, Dave, halfway
Okay,
between all infantry and all dread knights,
cool.
because
Nice.
I love these ones, and I think about half the teams have gone for 3 dread knights,
Yep.
and then a mixture of stuff in the middle. But
Yep.
I love Johann's list. I think it's super cool. He's got all the pieces you need to do really well at this
hmm
tournament.
Yeah. I mean, so Grey Knights as a singles, I think, are definitely going to be super strong. I wouldn't be surprised if Grey Knights are just under Sisters. Actually, no, they'll be more popular than Sisters. Just under Marines, I think, for the second most popular going into a tournament
Oh,
faction. I think, yeah.
okay, yeah.
Uh, I remember singles for the last year actually when Grey Knights have been good. I think they've been super represented. Right, they're
Mhm,
very easy army to collect,
mhm.
pretty straightforward to paint. Silver spray. They're kind of like obviously the silver custodians to that sense, and they're super cool as well. Super fun to play.
Very
I
cool.
think players really enjoy playing them as
Mhm.
well. So yeah, Grey Knights, they're going to be good. I can see he's got Sigil on his Librarian. He's got 3 Nemesis Dread Knights, so
Mhm.
middle of the road. No Grandmaster there. He's got 3 strike squads, a unit of
Beautiful.
5, a unit of 10 Terminators,
Yep.
2 Librarians, and Kaldor Drago. So Drago gives you the +3 to charge when you come back down, right? Once per
Yep.
game. So probably whack that on the 10 Terminators, I imagine. Or depending on the matchup, you could put your Librarians and your Terminator squads if you're playing against something like T-Suns, I'd imagine.
Absolutely. I mean, Drago gives you a feel no pain against mortal wounds as well.
Oh, sick.
So I mean, it's yeah, you're sorted here for the T Suns game. It's looking pretty spicy.
Nice.
But I love the double librarian tech. We've got that in Team England as well.
hmm
In this case, he's got one librarian with sigil of exigence, which is probably going to go in the big unit of 10
hmm
Terminators. And he's got Drago who can jump into the smaller unit of 5 here. And I think that combination, along with 3 strike squads, that sticky scout and 3 Dread Knights for a little bit of output as well that can be focused into an area. Johan's got an answer for a lot of different situations and a lot of different armies.
Hmm.
I'm not convinced GK are an army that pushes a big score versus your opponent. You're not going to push your opponent all the way down,
Hmm.
but it is an absolute pain to have to deal with these guys and stop them from keeping your score down low enough and their score just high enough that they're always kind of winning or drawing games.
Yeah, it can be pretty hard to move through some of these bricks. The AOC
Hmm.
2 up, 4 up, 3 wounds, protection from mortal wounds as well. So yeah, I like it. I think Grey Knights are really solid. It's really cool to see that we've got a lot of faction diversity in terms of the builds as well. We've got people playing all the way up for 6 Dread Knights. We've got people playing no Dread Knights with Chris Radford as well.
Hmm.
So it just goes to show what role you would play. I think
Yeah,
Grey Knights are a good pick for singles. They've got a
I
lot of
think so.
play. They've got a little bit less agency than I think some of the previous armies we've mentioned, though, right? Sisters, Thousand Suns, and kind of your flavor of Marines, because they do
Hmm.
rely on that deep strike component, and they often are a deep strike shooting component army. You are a little bit more at the mercy of how well your opponent can play, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, they have more tricks than any of those other armies, in my
Mm,
opinion, but they also significantly have less damage than the
yes.
other 3 armies we just mentioned. The other 3 are proper damage output armies, especially the T Sons and the Sisters.
Mm,
And you could argue so the Blood Angels and the Space Wolves as well are proper
mm,
damage output armies. So that's always going to be a negative for GK. You put a couple of rhinos in front of them, and they're going to spend half their life trying to get through those things. So for singles, that is always a detriment. For me, whenever I go into singles, I'm always looking, do I have an answer to someone who just puts 6 dumb things in front of me?
mm.
And am I going to be able to play my way through that game? And I always get scared that GK struggles to do
Yeah,
that.
for sure. And I guess GK also, depending on how T-Sun orientated your meta is, I do think T-Suns are quite good into GK at the end of the day as well. The 4 up feel no pain abilities,
Yeah,
obviously
GK are good
insanely
into
good.
T Suns, right?
No, no, no. I think T-Suns are quite good into GK.
T Suns are good into GK.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, yeah,
definitely.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All
I've
right.
never lost against them personally.
Yeah, it
Um,
depends on the build. I
it
mean,
does, yeah. So there's clear decision points you can make there. How many librarians? If you're playing Terminators, the 6 NDK build is definitely not good against Thousand Suns. So if you're
yeah.
worried about that being in the meta, a handy piece of advice: don't play that type of build. You want to
Mhm.
be playing a more MSU build with protection against psychic damage, obviously, but the revert and less reliance on psychic damage yourself, because obviously T Suns have the 4 up feel no pain ability, which is really really strong.
Against the
And
psychic attacks, yeah, of
Right,
course.
exactly right. And if your whole army is psychic attacks, then yeah, it means that you're consistently trading down, so to speak. And with doom bolts and just almost infinite damage, it's going to be hard to if your opponent plays tightly, hard to win a T Sun game. I think. I think even a build like this is still, in a singles perspective, is
Hmm.
still difficult to beat T Suns with.
Oh,
But that's just
spicy.
my
That's a
opinion.
take. But I
Yeah,
mean, I'll give it to you. These triple mutilate beasts, the Forge Fiends, all this stuff, it's completely different story to
it's
the
true. Yeah.
Rubric Marine builds.
The Forge Fiend build is very clearly
Yeah,
excellent against something like this.
correct.
But the
Completely
problem
agree.
with the Mutolith is that what do you put in to try and kill it? Well, 5 strikes doesn't do
Yeah.
it. 2 NDKs? Well, sure, 2 NDKs are dead next turn, 100%. So you're very quickly going to run down to just having maybe the big Terminator brick left,
Mhm.
which I mean, it can do a lot, but it's not going to hold your primary, do your secondaries, and stuff
Yeah,
like that at the end of the day.
absolutely. These triple mutilate builds are good into GK. I'll give you that.
Oh yeah, I mean a build with a bit less chaff, where you can get more quickly into the meat of the T Sun's army. Yeah,
Mhm.
that is where GK can shine a bit more, I think, for sure. Um, you know, 3-inch deep striking Terminators, and then being able to pick up chaff or something like that quickly and early in the game is definitely a more annoying thing to deal with, because I mean Terminators obviously don't kill a Mutolith beast by any chance of the imagination.
No, 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 no. It's very tough. Even their psychic, their librarian abilities still have to go through a 5 of feel no pain. So they
Exactly.
probably would prefer to kill Magnus than they would to kill a mutilate vortex beast.
Yeah. There we go. GK. Still, I mean, a super solid army. This is turning into a slightish of tier list, but I would put GK under the previous armies we've mentioned, right? If
Yeah.
we've gone Marines, Thousand Suns, Sisters, I would put Sisters above Thousand Suns. I think we'd both probably do that, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm arguably putting Sisters above Marines. It's
Yeah.
wild. I'm arguably saying that they're the best army in the game potentially.
I guess if we're going to keep going down the matrix,
Hmm.
then we should talk about Eldari, perhaps.
Yeah, sure.
We'll
Yeah.
skip the Necrons for the time
I
being,
mean, we can either
and
do Hugo or Liam. They've
I
both
think
got
they
the
both
same
have the
list.
same list. Let's do
Yeah.
Hugo, so it doesn't sound like I'm talking about my collaboration partner.
Okay. Yeah. It's
Although
Hugo.
I do suspect their
There he
lists are
is.
the exact same, of course. Hugo and Liam being good friends. Here we go, and this is the incarnation of no incarn. No, it's the Drakari and Aldari special, which is fair to
Yunari.
say
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
definitely the most common archetype if you're going to be playing singles. This is a list, especially if you play in Europe. But if you don't play in Europe and no one knows about this list, then this is a great list to pick up because no one's going to be expecting you to play something like this, your local meta. And this list has got so many things that catch you off guard. The damage is a lot higher than what it looks like. Eldar
Mm.
always looks like this random bunch of stuff all together, and then all of a sudden you go, "Oh,
I
wow,
hope
yeah, that's a lot
everything's
of
dead.
damage." Well, what I would say is this list is a little bit different because I can see already it doesn't have Lilith. So
Lilith will. It should be down at the bottom. I would have thought. In the allies.
oh, it is
There
in the
she is.
in the allies. Yeah, of course. Cool. Okay,
Mm.
so it looks exactly the same more or less. So Eldari, nerf after nerf. You know, the fate dice have been substituted more now for a movement and on key turn kind of ability. I would
Yeah.
say, right?
Charge. Get a charge in. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Eldari, Vic. I think you and I differ quite a bit on this, as we've already talked about. But I think Eldari are really strong right now. I think in singles they've got a great shot at beating any of the armies we previously mentioned.
Oh,
Apart from the three
true.
Mutalith Beast, I think they've got a good chance into everything we mentioned. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go against you there. I'll kick your ass with Eldar with that 3 meter vortex piece. No problem. Easy. um,
Bring it on, mate.
the nerfs on the points cost to Eldar were very targeted for Ynnari specifically.
Mm.
So this particular list probably got one of the biggest points increases
I think it was
because
about 120 points or something like that.
it's a lot.
Maybe even more. Yeah.
It's a lot for where Eldar were. But it was specifically targeted into kind of Ivrain, Dark
Hmm.
Reapers, Swooping Hawks, Warp Spiders. It's everything in this list. Swooping Hawks, Warp Spiders, and Scourges all got points increases. So
The only thing that escaped, which they're not playing now, is Shadow Spectres. I think also went up, but now they're just not playing them.
yeah. Does this list have a single Warp Spider unit, or
Oh
is it
yes,
double?
yes, yes, it does.
It's just one.
Two
It's got to
units
be
of Warp
two.
Spiders too.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to go through the list, we've got Yvrain, Wave Serpent, 2 units, 3 units of 5 Dark Reapers, 1 unit of Howling Banshees, 2 units of Striking Scorpions, which are super good in the meta right now. I think two
I
Swooping
agree.
Hawks, which are great. An 11-man troop unit. I believe it's I
Yeah,
believe it's an
11.
11-man. Yeah.
Correct for the 4
Which
fusion. Yeah.
if you don't know, get +1 to wound if they charge. So they may be strength 4, but they basically wound everything on 5s. So or 5s or 4s. So yeah, a lot of damage, and they get lethal, I think, and rerolls.
Yeah, good
Uh,
unit for sure.
2 units of Warp Spiders. They also have a 4-up and 1 5-up Feel No Pain. So they're a lot harder to kill than you think they are.
Absolutely.
And then we've got a unit of Cabalite Warriors, Lilith, 3 units of Scourges with 3 Haywires, 1 Dark Lance,
Yep.
and we've
Nice
got a
tech.
Venom and a unit of Witches with Lilith to join. Lilith does fight first and has an anti-infantry as well. So, you know,
And Vindy Infantry 2 plus.
two
Very good.
plus and a lot of attacks.
A lot of
Yeah.
attacks with sustained 2.
Yep.
Very
And she
good.
can go berserk once per game and get more. Oh, that gives us a
That
sustain too,
is.
right?
No, she has sustained 2 anyway, but she goes up to 12 attacks, something like that.
Oh, I see. Right. Yeah. The blender.
The Blender. She's very good. I love Lilith and the Witches. I love Ivrain and the troops.
Hmm?
I don't like the Dark Reapers personally. I mean, I
Oh,
understand they're good, but 85 points. I'm looking at other options in Ynnari. I love Reavers, Mandrakes. I think
yes.
you know there is other units that are good that you can take in Eldar. So there's a lot of flexibility.
Hmm. Yep.
For teams, they end up as an excellent anti-vehicle army.
Yes.
They have potential to be a good anti-melee counter as well,
Hmm.
like this list you're looking at in front of you, and just an overall versatile scoring list. So Eldar are strong, I think. I agree with you. I think they are good. Are they going to be able to win a tournament? I mean, you saw a GK list just before, right?
Yeah, it's
Tough.
true.
Tough to deal with that GK list. You saw a T-Suns with the Mutalith Vortex piece. Tough, really tough to deal with that
Hmm.
stuff.
Yep.
Um, Are you? I
The
think.
irony is the flip side is this absolutely destroys six different Nemesis Dread Knights.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. The more Terminators you have, the game gets worse for the Eldar. The
Yeah.
more Dread Knights they have, the better it gets.
Which,
And I
which
think that's
I think just goes to show that if you're playing a singles GK list, you don't want to play 6 NDK, right? You want to play somewhere
oh,
between two or
definitely.
three, right?
Yeah, I think the six NDK is much better suited for teams.
Yeah.
For singles, there's a lot of weaknesses to that list. It loses
Mhm.
to a lot of things at the moment, so
Mm.
keep that in mind.
Yeah, it's so. I mean, Eldari, it's definitely something to look out for. It's it's consistently one of those armies that you need to try and take the battle on your own terms. That's whenever I play against them. That's what I think. I need to be proactive. If you're
Yeah.
not the proactive player against Eldari, it's just it's a downhill slope because they get to dictate the flow of the game, and that's really tough.
Hmm.
Super solid. I'm a big fan. I could see myself playing something like this personally. I think
Yeah.
on UKTC, I think there's no reason why a build like this I don't think wouldn't be good. For example, and it's pretty terrain agnostic. If I'm being honest, I think you can probably
It
play
should
this on
be
everything.
okay. I mean, you need a little bit of staging for the wave serpent to get into positions where you can threaten stuff,
Hmm.
but a lot of the terrain formats provide that to you anyway. So
Yeah, for sure. There we go. All right, now on to some a little bit more spicy lists. What I would say is,
yeah, we are in the
let's
spice section, aren't
the
we?
spice section. Welcome to the Isle of Spice. Let's go Necrons
Okay.
because if there
This
was
I have no idea. This is all you, Dave.
sorry, there's a good friend of mine,
Go for Gita?
Valentine. Oh,
Oh,
well, let's
Valentine.
go through both. The problem is that there's such difference. Now, whilst the theme of our show has been trying to talk about lists which could translate to singles well, I I do think this list is quite good. I'm not sure if it would be great in singles, but I don't know if Necrons would be amazing in singles outside of a couple of specific builds.
Is this an
So
awakened build or?
yeah, I have got an Awakened Dynasty build that I can show you in a minute here. Not on that. Oops.
Oh,
Yes. I guess we could look at Poland's one, but it's got a little bit too much spice. I think for the general audience, might be too spicy.
this is too spicy.
Yeah.
Let's
But
have
like I was going to say, if there are two players on this earth which I would trust to build a Necron list, it would be Valentine and it would be Gito. Gito will message you about 3 essays back of Necrons if you message him. And Valentine really knows his stuff. He obviously played at World Champs. Guy's an absolute beast and a wicked
Mhm.
painter as well. This
Passionate
is an
eyes.
archetype that we've seen quite a lot. This has been around for a long time. It's been popular initially on launch, where we had hyperphasing Satan builds. Then kind of Canoptic Court was there, being a lot more popular and stronger. And now that that has been nerfed a little bit, it's a good reminder to think about strong ways to build these Necron builds as well. Now, I think Valentine might be the only Necron player playing this archetype here with the Catan, which is quite impressive because there are a lot of Necrons as well. The other Necron build we're talking about would be the Awakened Dynasty, which is now a lot more popular as well. Well,
Mhm.
actually, having said that, there's also the Monolith Hyperphase mid-table build, take all comers kind of build, I would say as well. But I think this is not a bad list. If you're looking to try and put something fresh on the table, and you're a Necron player, and you want to maybe play 3 or 4 games into meta armies, this is actually maybe where I would start, and then try and see if you can work backwards to fix the errors after that. So it's Hyperphasing, Nightbringer, Void Dragon. I'm not a fan of Void Dragon, but anyway. Illumina Seras, he's got 2 Transcendent Catans and a Locust Lore.
What is this list? I haven't seen this.
Yeah, this is
Wow.
just Catans, right? The
Wow.
Transcendents
He's got
kind of stay
four of
there.
them.
Yeah, yeah. Death marks are super good right now.
60
Oh
points
man,
is
60.
nuts.
Yeah, and they get to bounce around. They got damage through shots.
I
Locust
think they have
Destroyers.
deep strike, don't they?
They have deep strike, which is
The actual, which
critical
is
in the hyper.
huge.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really good. Then he's got 3 heavy guns on the Locust Destroyers, unit of Tomb Blades, and a unit of Tomb Blades. In teams, I think this is an excellent build. And in fact, this, in retrospect, I think would probably make a lot of teams top eights potentially here. This build can score 75 points. I know StatCheck, we're talking about this. Can score 75 points taking fixed secondaries. It can deny you points. It's got great access to secret mission as well, potentially. Uh, yeah, it's if you don't have the profiles to kill this, it's
Hmm.
going to be a tough game.
Yeah.
And do builds like Blood Angels, for example, can they knock this down? Oh, maybe can Dark
Maybe.
Angels? That might be good. I wouldn't be surprised.
I think it'd be good into Dark Angels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Blood Angels do have the Inferno pistols, which can be a bit frustrating, but
Yeah.
half damage against them is still pretty powerful, and you're going to be
Mhm.
sandbagging a heroic intervention and an interrupt potentially here as well.
Yep.
So it's tough. The Nightbringer is obviously mental good as well.
Yep. The
With that two
Nightbringer is the
damage.
scary one, isn't it?
Exactly. Transcendent means you can still play the board. This seems really good in my head into
Mm.
Marines. It seems perfectly great into Aldari as well. Seems
Yep.
seems absolutely perfectly playable into kind of Tyranids, World Eaters, Votan. So
You probably
it's
want to. You just want to avoid sisters and T-Sons, which is becoming a bit of a trend here, to be honest.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's a really cool build. I would be surprised if Valentine. I know his role probably isn't going to be a pushing role, but I would be surprised if he did poorly. I think he'll do quite well in this build in his role, and I
Yep.
think a lot of teams, in retrospect, might look at this build and think that maybe that was the way to go. But we've
Mhm.
got the other build, Awakened Dynasty, Gito here with I mean, Psychomancers,
He's
Locust
mad.
Lords,
The Sackmasters are
Scorpix.
cool.
Scorpic Lords. Yeah, and the theme for Awakened Dynasty being that you've got access to the 1 CP strat where you can revive your character. So, why not play? I'm assuming this is like
That's
9
the Battle
characters or
Shock
something like
guys,
that.
right? The Psychomancers. So that's
Exactly.
very clever, guys. Watch out for Gito there. He's gonna get you. He's gonna drop your points down before you know it.
Exactly. You think you're on that objective? Bam!
Oh hell no!
Snipe him with
Two
it.
units on the objectives, guys. Two
Yeah,
units.
man. Double battle shock, mate. Luminous Cirrus is just complete value. Get back up on this model is absolutely crazy. 1 CP
Yeah,
get back up at 180 point characters.
yeah.
Mental.
You've run that, haven't you?
Yeah, exactly. It was the
Yeah.
first time we played it. 6 Wraiths for a bit of stat check, and then a bunch of Destroyers. Triac Stalker gives you ignore cover, and if I'm not mistaken, running the old
Two with the
cheeky.
mythics. Oof, spice.
Yes, yes, exactly. Man, you,
Uh,
you do know your stuff, man. You know what the
y-
different weapons are
the
called.
mythics. Oh, as an Eldar player, I know about mythic destroyers. Don't worry.
Yeah, exactly. And then the old one of Scorpec Lord with the dermal bond, which I believe is the 4-up Feel No Pain.
Feel no pain. Yeah, yeah.
So can get back up with the 4-up Feel No Pain. I will say that the Scorpion Lord, every time I've played it, does not kill anything. So, you just gotta hope that you hit with them.
You know that
Yeah.
heavy destroyers, are
Mhm.
they still like easy to use outside of Hypercrypt? Are they not a bit tough to use?
I think they are a bit tough to use, and it's a
Mm,
good read there. And I think you're going to need to rapid ingress the enigmatic exterminators,
mm,
or at least at rapid ingress quite a few of them. Now I know Gito is a huge. He basically plays 9 destroyers regardless.
yeah.
So yeah, it's they're a little bit clunky, that's for sure.
He'll be a
Whereas in
master with those, I'm sure.
yeah, 2 crypto thralls, which is pretty spicy.
Oh,
They were obviously previously nerfed a lot, but they can join immortals and make them significantly more tanky. Now, this is
spice.
this is definitely a teams list, and I'm not sure if I would recommend this going to play singles.
Hmm.
But if you're looking for a more singles list, I would probably start with Valentine's list, or I would look into one of the one monolith type builds,
Mm,
etc. like that. There are more Awakened Dynasty builds that play 18 wraiths. I think that's an interesting singles build as well. But the problem is that you're in a meta now with some pretty high output armies. Dark Angels, Blood Angels, T Suns. It's going to be a tough one to
mm.
play wraiths into those types of armies in a singles environment where you just need to win by a couple of points. So I'd probably go for a skew way and try and get people like that. I think.
Yep, I see it.
There we go. Necrons. We're definitely gone down the list quite far.
Yeah, it dropped off a little bit there,
Yeah.
didn't it?
What about the
But
old? What about Tau?
oh, Tau. Well, we haven't got many examples of Tau. Actually,
Mm,
despite being really popular, they're not very popular in like the higher seeded teams.
yeah.
I know Canada has one, and we know USA has one. We've got Ganyo's list up,
Hmm.
and I personally think Kaoyon is probably the strongest
Hmm.
Tau detachment. Like I love Tau, so I like playing a bit of Tau, and I found that one makes the most sense to the kind of playstyle you want to play.
Yep.
You want to kind of be a bit progressive with your scoring, and then just bang, they're dead on turn three.
Yep.
um, and Ganyo's got a really interesting list where he's brought a lot of tech pieces in, which
Mm.
probably allow him to do that kind of playing it progressively.
Mhm.
Because in this case, he has got Shadow Sun, which I think a lot of people have dropped out of their Tau lists.
Mm.
Great, allows him to play a little bit of mission play with a little loan up piece, and still
Yep.
get his reroll ones when he's not able to
Hmm.
mark something. He's got the Cold Star with the unit of Sunforged Crisis Battlesuits. That's the Melter guys.
Yep.
Which is kind of like the Eradicators for John Lennon. You know,
Hmm.
he has a list that does something, and then he's got an answer, an anti-vehicle monster answer inside of
Yep.
the list.
Hmm.
Which maybe that's a trend that the Americans are looking at. And I think for singles, that's a very clever way of doing your list. It
Hmm.
immediately makes your list better against more things.
Hmm. Yep.
What else has he got, Dave? How many
Oh, he's got
hammerheads?
only one hammerhead, but he's also got the ghost kill as well. I think ghost kill is fantastic. I
He'll
think
go
most
skill,
armies
yeah.
would play that if they could.
He's only got a
He's got
single hammerhead is the
mm,
interesting thing here, because the hammerheads are massively pushed for their points cost.
yes,
Um,
although yeah, they are pushed for their points cost. That's for
mhm.
sure. Still, and then of course rocking the Riptide or the Triptide.
Triple riptides
Yep,
and double stealths.
two
Double
stealth
stealth suits,
suits
and how many
and two piranhas.
pathfinders?
One Pathfinder, if I remember correctly. So
Okay, yeah.
maybe, maybe the
It's
guide there is a
interesting.
little bit tough, but
It's a little tough. Okay,
yeah, he's got a lot
so
of mission play though.
because I've seen a lot of Calgon lists which are played off 3 stealth suits and 1 or 2
Uh,
pathfinders,
yeah. Okay.
and still have 2 piranhas. So
Oh, okay. Right.
there's definitely, because the Sunforged battle suits with the Cold Star Commander and Shadow Sun are a lot of
That's a lot
points
of points.
taken out of your mission play and number of units to
Yeah.
give you specific tools.
Let
Uh,
me let me give you a hot take here.
yeah.
I actually think Tau are very strong in singles,
Ooh, that is a hot take.
but I think it entirely depends on whether or not you can play the Tiger Shark.
Correct.
I think the Tiger Shark is genuinely quite strong,
Mhm.
and
I agree.
if your tournament hasn't ruled that the 6-inch base can't activate, like in WTC guys, if you don't know, the 6-inch base cannot activate the turn it comes in. So if your base is larger than 6 inches, it can't activate the turn it comes in. But if you're playing current rules as written GW, you can do that. And I'll be honest with you, the Tiger Shark is pretty damn good. If you play it in Kaoyun, you can rapid ingress, you can shoot it, and then on turn 3, you can yeet across your opponent's board. You can shoot something with sustain 2. Doesn't even matter if you're guided or not. And then you can overwatch them with sustain 2 after that.
Yep.
And you're
Very,
basically
very strong.
overwatching with like 500 points worth of units. And it has like a bunch of cyclic ion blast. Like, whew, I think that it's a pretty tough thing to answer, actually, if I'm being honest. If you think like, oh, you just bring your tiger shark down, shoot whatever can kill your tiger shark, or focus your army on killing that piece, then wow, your tiger shark's probably going to be like Magnus for the rest of the game after that.
Mm. It's severely undercosted. The
Yeah,
Tiger Shark is the problem for the
it's,
amount of guns that they put on
yeah,
that thing. It's a little pushed. I am a bit scared for tournaments that allow it to be used and just actually activate properly. But
yeah,
we're lucky in WTC in a way that it's not. Now the
yeah.
question comes: if you can't do that,
Hmm.
where are Tau sitting?
Yeah, it's a bit tough because they are quite mappable, right? They're quite linear. They're a bit on the tin, so to speak. So
Hmm. Oh.
I
Hmm.
I think they come a lot down a lot to the pilot for sure.
Mhm.
I don't think they're an army like Blood Angels per se, where an average caliber player can do really well with them. I think you do need to be quite specialized on them.
Yeah.
Uh, I wouldn't put them in the top 5 by any
Yeah.
means. But
Yeah.
what I do think, though, in comparison, is that the playing field does level out a lot more after the top 5 as well.
Mhm.
So that's not to say that you couldn't do well with them. I would be worried about playing Tau into Sisters and Thousand Sons for sure. I think the Sisters would be a very tough game, I would imagine.
Well, imagine trying to deal with like Blood Angels, or
Well, yeah.
imagine trying to deal with. I think you could maybe deal with the Deathwing Knights, possibly,
Yeah.
possibly out of everything. But it's even Space Wolves. Oh my god, it's going to be a.
Would you play Montcar or Kaoyun if you're going to play singles?
This is the thing. I think
I feel like you'd play Montcar personally.
Montcalm might be the spice, even for teams. I think it might be the
Mm,
spice here, because there is some benefit to in teams you can choose your board almost if you go down.
mm.
Maybe there is some benefit of applying that pressure. Look, I have 9 piranhas here. If I go first, you're dead. This is a bit of benefit to that, and that can be applied to singles as well. Like, here you
Yeah.
go. I'm going to hide my whole army. But if I go first, I'm
Yeah,
gonna
yeah,
get
yeah.
you.
I'm going to move that Riptide 22 inches, boy.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it's close between the two, very close.
I think quite terrain dependent as well, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Obviously being a monophase shooting army at the same time. There.
Yeah.
All right,
Absolutely.
an army which is definitely better than Tau in singles
Hmm.
is Tyranids.
Yeah, it's the bugs.
Uh, Now Tyranids are. Have you got the Excel spreadsheet open? You know what number representation they are.
I'll have a look. It's got to be high, right?
The
Is it
answer
not?
is not high enough. I think
Tyranids are an 18 of the list. They're equal to Eldar.
equal to Eldar. Yeah, okay, that's fair enough.
That's good. Yeah.
Tyranids actually have a range of different builds, and I was practicing Tyranids a lot before moving to T-Sons for WTC. They've got lots of different viabilities, pretty well balanced actually. I think Invasion Fleet, which is the Index Codex attachment, super
Mhm.
viable if you want to
Yep.
play old one irons and carnifexes. Really good reason to play that. Then you've got Synaptic Nexus, which I personally think is the best singles list version of it.
Oh.
Then you've got a Vanguard detachment, which is kind of popular here as well. Has
Mhm.
been more popular in the singles, but I don't think that that'll be the case after WTC. I think most people play Synaptic after this,
Mhm.
which is very kind of heavy infiltrator, reactive mood, low op based, but it doesn't have a lot of punch for my liking. Then you've also got Crusher Stampede, which I think is a huge unopened kind of
I
envelope
agree.
of potential goodness in there as well.
Yeah.
And I would love to play some Crusher Stampede at LGT.
Oh yeah, that
uh,
that USA list, that's spicy. I love that USA list. That's a
yeah,
good
so
list.
there's a bunch of different archetypes here,
Mm.
and I think it doesn't actually. So if you want to get back into Tyranids, maybe you're a returning player or something like that. I would go with either Synaptic Nexus or, depending on which models you have availability to, I would go Invasion Fleet, which is
Yeah,
going to be your more standard fiber feel no pain Carnifex type of thing. If
I
you're a
see it.
returning player, and if
Mm.
you've got like a big model range, you want to do something a bit different, you're a bit more clever on the terrain. Crusher Stampede, I think, is that option there to play into. So I thought we'd go over one list which I think would be good if I was to play Tyranids. I'd probably just and I wanted to copy and paste the list for a single tournament next weekend. I'd probably just copy and paste this one. It's Innes
Can't
Wilson
can't go
from.
wrong with Innes, can you?
You can't go wrong with him. He
No.
thought of some things which I didn't think about as well, actually.
Mhm.
Well, I did try this, but I certainly didn't play three. So he's got Death Leaper, yeah, just really solid all round. He's got the Hive Tyrant with Synaptic Control, which I want to say off the top of my head is a -1 damage. And with -1 damage in AOC, he is very pricey though, 255, but he's got an aura of assault and lethal hits. So he's got a big upgrade, and he really enables a lot of your list here. Neuro Tyrant, which got a huge upgrade because it gets big guns never tire, and it can join zone ropes now. So
Spice.
two pieces that have directly had a big upgrade. He's got the Parasite of Mortrix with the Dirge Heart of Karis, which is the -1 leadership mm, data sheet leadership, I want to say.
Oh yeah,
Which,
-4 leadership, -3 now.
well, the annoying part is there's like some things that modify the roll, there's some things that modify the
Right.
characteristic. The
Sure.
characteristic can't be lower than 9, but the roll can be low. So it's like,
Sure.
I can't remember which one is which, I'm not going to lie. But you can do that. That's a bit of spice there. You got one unit of gargoyles, two hormigons. I'm a big fan of two gargoyles personally. Got the biovore for something holding the backfield and spore mine. Still pretty useful actually.
Very good.
You
Yeah.
can block the advance, and if you're playing in sisters, put that spore mine down. You
Very
can't
good.
advance those
Very
seraphim there,
good. Yeah.
or just block something in the middle of the thing.
That's a game
Um,
changer, isn't it? It's very
it's
nice.
pretty good, and just as a one-off, you can do some secondaries with it as well. So
But
you're happy to play that.
yeah, I like that. So yeah, the way you play Biovores is I was trying to think, because they die when you go within 3.
Yep.
But you can kind of measure that out without the advance, can't you?
Yeah,
So you can make
and they
it
can't end
really
in
annoying
advance. Yeah, and you can't
within
end in
6.
advance. I think within 6. So
Oh, it's good.
yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, I was playing one in my list as well. Exocrine, Maliceptor. He's got two Maliceptors and one Exo here. The Maliceptors are pretty good actually because they provide an aura of -1 to hit in combat,
Yeah,
6 inches. Surprisingly, a really
really
good
good.
aura,
So
and you can
strong.
fall back and shoot and charge in Synaptic Nexus, which is really good.
And they're
Now,
synapses as well, aren't they? The Malceptors.
exactly. Yep. You've got three Morlocks. Now, the reason why you want to play three Morlocks is
Oh no,
on a
I hate
5
these
plus,
guys.
on a 5 plus, they force a battle shock test. And actually, the best stratagem in this entire codex is the grenade stratagem. It's basically whenever your opponent becomes battle shocked at any phase, on any turn, if they become battle shocked on within 12 of a synapse creature, which you probably already have, you roll 66 on a 3 plus, they take a mortal wound. So let's
Hmm.
say, for example, it's your turn, Vic. You're like, okay, end of my movement phase. I'm like, okay, I'll rapid ingress my Morlock, hit 2 units. I rolled a 5+on 1, and then I use the strat on your turn, and then you take 4 mortal wounds from the grenade strat as well.
Yeah, brutal.
It's interesting. That now, what I would say is that the Morlocks, when I tested them, they're a little bit hard to make work on the WTC terrain because you can usually find a combination of they can't land on the wall and then they can't deep strike there. So it's a little bit tough. But maybe 3 are more in that game plan of killing chaff and then dropping them, so to speak.
Against those kind of T3 one wound models, the Morlocks just almost auto win you these games, don't they?
Yeah, it's also got 16 attacks. And if you rapid ingress it, what you can do is go the 5-up invulnerable on that turn, then rapid ingress it, then it comes down with a 5-up invuln. Or
Yeah.
you've also got army wide +1 to charge, which means that you could deep strike it +1 to charge and go for an 8, which is substantially more likely than 9. So yeah, he's got 2 Neurolictors, again for the grenade strat more or less, and 1 unit of Tyranid Warriors.
What's the Tyranid Warriors? What's that?
Don't be afraid, Vic. They're not that strong.
Why? Weird.
They're actually not terribly bad. You get a Barb Strangler and a Venom Cannon for 65 points. It's not terrible.
Yes.
They also synapse as well. So yeah, they're not the worst. Maybe it was a break point here.
Yeah.
I can see that he is 2k on the nose. So I'm thinking probably with the Biovore in here, this comes neat at 100 points.
Yeah, I was
So
just
maybe
wondering
that's-
why it's not like maybe more Homagons or upgrading Homagons to Gargoyle or something. There
Yeah.
must be a reason for it. Only Innis will know until WTC is over.
Yeah, so I think this is a lovely list. I think he's got a lot of potential play here. Now, I think Tyranids are one of those really cool armies too. They got a lot of flex. Do you want to be a bit more anti-infantry? You want to be more anti-combat? You want to have more shooting, depending on your train. You could play a Synaptic Nexus list that looks so much different from this. You could remove all 3 Morlocks, play 2 more Exocrines, and then find another points for another Maliceptor. Then you're playing 3 Maliceptors, 3 Exocrines, and you've basically got Ironstorm.
Yeah.
So a very different looking list after that. I think Tyranids are great. I think they crack the. Do they crack the top 5? It's hard to say.
I think so.
They can play against sisters though. I will say.
I put them above Eldar personally for singles.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
fair.
they have more than one archetype that is going to be great in singles.
Yeah. What I would say also as well as my ad block is that there's also Crusher Stampede build played by Eric Forsman. Now, I don't think that's a great singles list. It's pretty skewed. I do think it's a great teams list though. But I think there is a Crusher Stampede list with some of the more unorthodox monsters, so to speak, like the Toxicrine or the Horospex, which, depending on your terrain format, might be a fun thing to investigate as well. Those models got substantially better with the Crusher Stampede update. And yeah, I think they're super interesting. I will confess I've played a lot of games with that list. And hey, there's nothing
Come on,
cooler
Dave.
than actually being able to play a big tentacle monster.
Get them in singles, mate. Get them out. Perfect.
Yeah. So will it do good against sisters with multi-melters? Yeah, it's another question I don't know.
I think it would be a great game, to be honest. I think that would be a great game.
Rapid Ingress, that's my one tool I have. But yeah. Tyranids are super cool. They've got a bunch of really fun options. I actually think they're a super fun army to play now as well. The Battle Shock mechanic is actually such a good detachment rule. I didn't really realize it, and the Neurotyrant gives you -1 to that as well. So
great fun for T-Suns, isn't it? How many Cabal points do I have? 2.
2, yeah. But Magnus is like leadership 5 or something like that, so he's pretty difficult. It's pretty good. I think it's definitely a great all-round faction if you want to invest in that to become a good player for the remaining. I think the T-Sun game is pretty difficult, but I think there's a huge amount of player skill you can do to make that better as well.
Oh, I think it's playable.
It depends on how many big monsters you have, I think.
Yeah.
Doombolt is obviously exceptionally good against some of these monsters. And double Doombolt is pretty tough, and you will most likely be eating Magnus every turn.
The Maliceptors are not the one for trying to do damage into T-Suns, are they?
No, they have a psychic attack.
Yeah, not the one.
They wound Magnus on 5s, and they have a psychic attack.
Not good.
Yeah, not the best. But hey, if you make him fail the Battle Shock, you can actually kill him pretty easy. Although, what I would say is that he doesn't actually have Zone Thropes, which is an interesting point. He's just playing the Neurotyrant by himself. If you do play the Zone Thropes, though, and you Battle Shock Magnus, you can do it with the Neurolictor to Battle Shock him, or you can Shadow in the Warp in your turn. If he does get Battle Shocked at -1, or -2 potentially, you do get +1 to wound against him as well, which is a
Yep.
huge benefit there. Then you
Huge.
can
Yeah.
grenade straight him as well. Yeah, the Screamer Killer, kind of an interesting option there as well. I think the model that basically has never seen play since it got released has a gun that you can shoot, and if you after you shoot it, if you score a hit, your opponent has to take a battle shock test at -1 as well. Then you can use the grenade straight as well. Oh,
Yeah, that's it.
the turret range.
Magnus can't blank a save if he's battle shocked.
Yeah, exactly. Fuck that guy.
Get him off the board.
Yeah, so that's tournaments. I mean, it's exciting, right? We've got a huge amount of lists.
Yeah.
A huge amount of potential here for the singles environment, and for the armies that we didn't mention, I don't think there are many that are off the face of the earth. Oh,
Oh
far away
yeah.
from these
You're gonna
lists,
see
right?
CSM. You'll see Leagues of Votan. They're all
Yeah,
popular WTC, and I think they're very good armies. There's a bunch of other ones which you could take to singles very
yeah.
successfully.
You could still play guard with your 18 Bulgrin, for
Hey,
example.
God, it's so
Perfectly
good
fine.
still. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I just hate
Absolutely.
playing 18 Bulgrin.
Dude, not for you.
Oh, I just
No.
hate it, man.
I think that archetype is strong. I think, and I
Yeah.
think will translate well into singles.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, there are a couple of people running those. So see how it goes.
There we go. There we go. What would be your list to play if LGT was tomorrow, Vic?
LGT was tomorrow. I think it would be mad if I didn't play Sisters. Come on.
Oh,
Come
that's how
on,
strong they are.
I have so much success with Sisters. Like
That's
they're my
true. That's
lucky
true.
charm,
Yeah.
and I would have loved to have been able to play Sisters or even Eldar at this at WTC, but
Hmm.
my practice with T Suns was needed for the team, so here I am. But
There you
I'm
go.
very excited to do something new. Practice with something different,
Yeah.
and I haven't been able to touch the Sisters Codex at all since it
Yeah.
came out.
I know you. I know that feeling because when Tyranids got the buff, I was like, "Oh yes, finally something
Yeah.
new to play." I
Yep.
would. I feel like I would try and go with the Tyranids. I think that'd be cool. I'd play
Oh
something
yeah,
close to Innis's list. I think that would be super fun to play.
definitely.
And it's got game into almost everything. I feel like so.
But the
Yeah.
thing is, you could flex between two or three different armies. Like for each
Mhm.
individual player, there's going to be multiple things that you like that are
Mm.
also good in singles. So I think this is a good time to be alive, to be
Yeah.
honest.
We didn't even talk about Chaos Demons or Chaos Knights, for example.
Yeah.
Death Guard still definitely up there as well.
Hmm.
It really comes down to, especially in singles, I think even more so, it comes down to the player skill and the matchup knowledge at the end of the day, doesn't it? And
Yeah.
also, I think some of these missions can have a bit more of an impact in singles because you just need to get past the post of your
Hmm.
over your opponent. So maybe having a good secret mission army is good, right?
Yeah, that's it. Maybe just rolling to go second sometimes might just pip you over the edge. So I
There we
think
go.
we are going to have a lot of fun once we can get out of WTC and go back to singles. But for now, we are locked in, we're focused, and I think we'll probably do one more kind of episode before WTC,
Yep,
and then it'll be all about WTC when we come back, and then
for
before you
sure.
know it, it'll be LGT.
Yeah, and if you are struggling to find relevancy in WTC, if you're a singles player, then let us know. We'll try and help translate some stuff.
Definitely. The
Uh,
whole point of this episode was for those people who are struggling to find this kind of content interesting because they don't
yep.
see the value in it.
Hmm.
And I hope that this episode shows that there is so much value in seeing this kind of list optimization done in WTC
Hmm.
because most of them translate into singles very, very well.
Definitely. There we go. Episode 59, Big 6-0. Hopefully, hopefully be a good one as well. We'll catch you guys later.
Cheers, guys. See you next time.
Bye.